So it was Thanksgiving 2014, and my father was telling the story about how he died and came back to life. Now, I had heard this story before. This is like a normal thing that we talked about in our household, and at this point it was just like a cool story of my father's resilience. So the story goes that he was driving on a mountain road in Nickel Bay, Canada, and he was coming around the bend, and a car came by and did a head-on collision. He was hours away from the hospital. They had to rush him to the hospital. They brought him into the operating room. They're working on him for hours, and his body dies. His spirit rises up to the corner of the room, can look down, see his body on the table. He sees the white light. He sees the spiritual beings, and they say, "It's not your time. You have to go back." And hours later, he wakes up in a hospital bed in a full body cast, but he's alive. So, like I said, I had heard the story before, but that night he told one detail that was different. And what he said was, when he talked to the spiritual beings, he had to make a deal to come back to life. He had to make a deal to come back to life. Now, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the Bible, but every deal with a spiritual being is about sacrificing your firstborn son. It's biblical. There's 5 times in the Bible where they say, God says, hey, you really got to sacrifice your firstborn son, which is me in this situation. So for the next 3 years, I'm obsessed with this deal. I'm like, what if he tells me the deal and then he dies? Or what if he tells me the deal then I die? Or what if he knows something that's so special, so powerful? If he tells me this deal, I'm not going to be able to live in normal society anymore, and I'm just done. I'm out. So I'm obsessed, and so I'm taking my daughter to preschool, and I'm thinking about the deal. I'm going to comedy shows, and after the comedy shows, I'm telling my buddies about the deal. And then I have my son, my firstborn son. And I'm like, I gotta ask my dad about the deal. I can't go on anymore. I have to know, do I have my own life? Am I here to do his sins? I have to know, because now I've got my firstborn son. So it was, like I said, 3 years later, the day after Thanksgiving. All we had to do that day was get a Christmas tree. And so my dad was there. I sit him down at the kitchen table, and I figure, hey, if I want to get this information, I should just start asking him questions. I'll ask him questions about his life. So I just started asking him questions about his life. And he started at the beginning. He was like, when I was 18, I got drafted, and I didn't go to Vietnam, I went to Germany. And then after I went to the war, me and my buddies rode motorcycles all across America. And then I met my first wife, and it didn't work out. And I got a divorce. And then I met your mom. And he proposed to my mom, and my mom said no. So he went and took a job in Alaska, and when the way back from Alaska is when he got into the car accident. So this is now an hour. He's been talking for an hour. He's just going and going and going, and we're getting closer and closer to the deal. I can feel it in my bones. Oh my God, we're right here. But everyone in my family's let's go get this Christmas tree. My daughter's pulling ornaments out and jingling bells. And my wife's hey, everyone's going crazy. Can we go get this tree? And I'm so close. I can feel it's exactly the next thing he should be talking about is this deal. And so I do the great holiday dad, and I shush my daughter, and I ignore my wife, and I yeah, so dad, keep going on, continue. And then he just starts, he's kind of being vague, and he's not really getting there, and I'm just seeing it it's all going away. And I was all right, if there's a time, now's the time. And so I say, Dad, a couple of Thanksgivings ago, you told a story about being in your accident, and you said that you made a deal to come back. Is there anything else there? And he took a long pause, and he goes, that's a story for another day. And I was what? No! I said it inside. outside I was like, okay, yeah, it's another day. Because we had a Christmas tree to get. So that day I didn't find out what the deal was. He didn't tell me. And so I thought it was funny. So I wrote an article for a magazine about it. And before I went to publish the article, I was like, hey, I want you guys to read this because it's about you, it's your story. So I want to make sure everything is accurate. So on Father's Day, they printed out a copy of the article and they brought it to my house and read it out loud, critiquing the details of the article. And if you're wondering about the worst way in history to have your art critiqued, it's out loud by your parents on a day when you're supposed to be celebrated. It was all three the worst. But so then we talked about it, and then my dad goes, do you want to know what the deal is? And I was like, I mean, yeah, I did. And he goes, when I was up in the corner of the room, and I was talking to the spirits from the other side, they said, it's not your time. You have to go back. You have to take care of the kids. And at the time, he wasn't even with my mom. Like, he didn't have any kids. So I think the deal didn't make my life a certain thing. It just guaranteed that I got a life. And let me get emotional for a second. My dad passed away in 2022, and I wasn't there when he passed, but they said he sat up in bed, looked off into the distance, probably seeing those same spiritual beings. He took one last breath, and then he passed on. And the kids are all right.